Hi, everybody. This is Zen Honeycutt of Moms Across America. It's almost Mother's Day, and today we are checking in around the world in Australia with Fran Murrell from MAGE, which is Mothers Are Demystifying Genetic Engineering. And there's another meaning. Fran, can you share it with us, which is quite fun?
Yes, it's mothers advocating deliciously good eating.
And who could go wrong with that? You can't go wrong with that. That's wonderful. So we want to hear more about what Madge is doing and check in around the world. What is going on with GMOs? Are they, prevalent in Australia? What are the policies? Are there new initiatives you've created? How is the awareness going in Australia around GMOs and what's happening there? Can you tell us a little bit about what's going on?
Yes, well, studies repeatedly show that people in Australia do not want to eat GMOs. And to help them, we have developed a little app and we've got shopping guides so that people can really avoid GMOs, which is fantastic. And in South Australia, one of our states, the ban on growing GMOs has been extended until 2025, which is amazing. So yeah,
Yay! Congratulations.
yeah. And in Western Australia, which is our largest state, which grows a lot of crops for export, there's currently a parliamentary inquiry into looking at compensating farmers who are damaged by being contaminated by GM canola. So we're very excited about that. So if that goes ahead, that will be fantastic. So farmers won't have to go to court and they can be compensated for their losses because GM canola is not wanted in Europe and it gets around $50 a ton less for farmers. So farmers really do not want to be contaminated. So that's our good news at the moment, that there's really a lot of awareness about not wanting GMOs.
Very good. And I'm curious, in the areas where GMOs might be growing, it sounds like it's less and less in Australia. What types of GMOs would those be?
Well, we've got GMO cotton and we've been growing GMO cotton since about 1996 and virtually 100% of the crop is GM. Mm-hmm. But we've got this massive river system called the Murray-Darling. There's sort of two rivers that supply most of the water to Eastern Australia. And there's been a lot of water theft going on. And it's been shown that a lot of the water theft is going to the GM cotton farmers, many of whom are enormous corporate farms that are basically damming the river so they can create vast private inland seas so they can irrigate their cotton. So I think people are becoming more and more aware that the cotton industry in Australia is vast. It's often corporate run and it's often unfairly taking the water that then doesn't go downstream to the other cities and farms down below. So I think people are beginning to realize that the cotton industry in Australia shouldn't be operating like this and is really squeezing out a whole lot of other uses, other produce. We also grow GM canola here, and it's probably no more than 20% of the crop. And what happened over in Eastern Australia, people tried it. They tried it in 2008, and then they realized that it doesn't yield very well. They have to use a whole lot of sprays. They have to pay sort of effectively royalty monies to the industry, and there's really no demand for it. So if you grow non-GM canola, you can sell it anywhere in the world. If you grow GM canola, you've got a very restricted market, and so it's not a good crop for farmers. And and it's interesting, the industry keeps trying to push it by giving away free bags of seed and also, buy three, get one free, that sort of pushing, but it's just not working.
Right. Wow. Well, that's very interesting to hear. So when here in the United States, if you see canola on anything, which is in practically all the processed foods or even vegetable oil, you have to assume that it's GMO because most of the canola from Canada and from the United States is GMO. But when I go to Europe, I'm not so sure, or Australia. What is it like if it says canola on a processed food packaging? Would you assume that that's GMO, or would it be labeled if it's GMO?
In Europe, it will be labelled if it's GMO. So if it's canola oil over there, then you're okay. In Australia, we've got terrible labelling laws. We do have GM labelling laws, but they're so full of holes that even a bottle of 100% GM canola oil doesn't require a label. But what people have started doing are labelling canola oil in brackets non-GMO, just to let people know that it's not GMO. So I think that shows a level of awareness in shoppers that they really do not want to buy and eat this stuff, and that food manufacturers are responding.
That's great. So the people the food manufacturers are taking initiative and are labeling themselves that it's non-GMO. So do you have a symbol or a sign for either non-GMO, like we have non-GMO Project Verified, or organic here that we can depend on that's, you know, not going to be GMO? Do you have a symbol like that?
No, not yet.
Okay. Okay. So, but you do have, and you do have GMO labeling law, but like the one that's going to be out for us, you're saying that it doesn't, there's so many loopholes. I'm guessing that because GMO canola oil is derived from GMO, but then it's so highly processed, it breaks down into tiny proteins that it's not considered detectable. Is that sort of the route that they're going with GMO canola oil?
That's the route they're going on. They're saying because we can't just, find any DNA, protein, or DNA or protein in the oil, that it's effectively the same as non-GM oil, which I think is a complete, insult to customers who actually want to know, how has this stuff been produced? We're not really concerned about the DNA or the, protein, because who knows what else is in the oil? We want to support non-GM. We want to support GM free.
Yes, that's great. For many reasons, for health reasons, for climate change reasons, for the bees and the pollinators, right? For the soil, for the farmer's health, the farm worker's health. There's many reasons to support non-GM, and for also to support a free market where farmers can use their own seeds and not pay high technology fees. I mean, there's so many reasons to avoid GMO. So, well, thank you for giving us an update on that. Do you have some initiatives? I don't know if you want to talk about what you are going to be working on, but maybe initiatives that you have worked on that were particularly either effective or fun to do, or maybe a different angle that activists from around the world could maybe say, oh, wow, that's a good idea, or maybe think of doing something similar to that. Do you have some initiatives you guys are working on?
I suppose the big issues that we're facing at the moment is that because there's been such a massive rejection of GM technology, there's all this new GM technology coming along, like all the gene editing and the CRISPR. And at the moment in Australia, we are drowning in submissions because the industry and our regulators are trying to deregulate this stuff, even though all the acts are about protecting public health, and they were obviously written to make sure that any new breeding techniques were covered. They're trying to say, no, this is so predictable that we don't need any policing of this. We don't need any monitoring. We don't need any testing, which I think is completely outrageous. So we're working really hard on that. And I've just recently got back from the Philippines as well. So Australia's just approved GM golden rice. We won't grow it and we won't import it, but it's just in case it contaminates other rice that's being imported, so it won't be a trade issue. And it was amazing to go over there because this conference was organised by farmers and scientist groups from the Philippines, and invited 80 people from all over Asia, and it was just incredible. So what was really amazing was the energy and the knowledge and the passion of all these people together who are dedicated to protecting rice and to ensuring people have a really healthy food system and have food sovereignty so they can grow what they want. So we're facing a deluge of stuff in Australia, but what is giving me strength is international links, and I think that we need to keep forging those, making links so that we can change our food system into one that nourishes us and the earth.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, I remember that seeing a couple months ago that the Philippines decided to go GMO free. So there's increasing awareness happening in Asia. I know there's increasing awareness in many different areas where they're having sort of birth defect issues. You know, the spraying is really impacting the farm workers and the people who live nearby. So there's more and more talk about these agrochemicals and how they're impacting the populations in Asia. Were there any highlights from the conference of the 80, leaders that came together any other highlights you'd like to share with us?
Well, there was an amazing scientist called Dr. Debel Dev from India, and the whole point of the GM rice that's being pushed is supposedly it has beta carotene and it's a reduced vitamin A deficiency. And he said that they'd looked in their rice stores and he'd found 515 types of rice that have high beta carotene in the brand. So as long as you eat it as brown rice, then you can get your vitamin A. And I just thought, wow, that is incredible. And if people realize that, they'd realize what a sham this whole GM is. And so I suppose in some ways the highlight for me was just seeing how much knowledge there is out there, and these people have already seen the green revolution, already know about all the chemicals and the birth defects, they already know it impoverishes them, and they're determined not to let this happen again. So that was really inspiring.
That is wonderful. And we know that the CRISPR that they're talking about is not safe or more specific as they're claiming. We know a study was out that showed Vandana Shiva talked about it, that over 1,600 mutations happened with just one gene edit. 1,600 off-target mutations happened. That is not something that I want to feed my children. I'm sure you don't want to feed your family that. We don't need that type of concern. So these CRISPR GMOs are something definitely to be aware of, and to speak to your policymakers and let them know that we want to err on the side of the precautionary principle. We want to be careful. This is the genetic makeup of our children that we're talking about here, and our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren, because these genes do pass down. So this is very important to be aware of, and I'm so glad that the activists like yourself and advocates are taking on raising awareness in Australia. It's a large country with a lot of influence, especially in Asia and around the world. And we really do hope that the food is safe there. I have one other question. Are you seeing changes in the water quality due to the agrochemicals used in GMO farming? Is there more testing and awareness? It's happening here. We're having all kinds of studies from like Aaron Brockovich and different people that are talking about all the different industrial chemicals and fertilizers and pollutants that are causing the dead zone to expand and algae to grow and things like that. Is there more testing happening in Australia?
Unfortunately not, and that's despite the fact that the highest levels of glyphosate in water was actually found in northern Victoria, the state that I'm in irrigation channels up in the north. So I think that the glyphosate issue here is quite concerning. I think a lot of people know about it, but a lot of farmers are unwilling to give it up and really don't know the dangers that they're putting themselves in by using it. So I think there still very much is that glyphosate, it's so much better than all the other chemicals. I don't think that there's an understanding that actually they're putting their own lives at risk. And also their produce, because we know from Tony Mitra, who looked at the studies, that they found very high levels of glyphosate in pulses that were exported from Australia. Mm-hmm. But I think we're not doing enough testing. We're not going out and helping farmers to think of alternatives. And I think that's what should be happening. We shouldn't be brushing it all under the carpet. We should say, yeah, there is an issue. Let's see what we can do to reduce sprays or get rid of them altogether, is my preference. So
yes. Which is happening. If you look at the Regenerative Agriculture movement, if you look at Rhode Island Institute, there are decades of study. There's biodynamic that's been around for over 100-something years. So there are other ways to farm. It is possible. I'm sure you have farmers there. I know when I went to the farmers market there in, I believe it was Melbourne, there was a wonderful organic selection. It was one of the most beautiful farmers markets I've ever seen. And there were great crowds that came out for the talks that you hosted with Michael Antonou and Dr. Michelle Perro and myself. And I know the word is getting out there, and there's some very passionate moms that I met right, that are there's just working very hard, and it's a wonderful crew that you have there. Can you give the website so people can see these wonderful videos that you had produced of the talks that we gave out there? I'm sure you have other talks on Donna Shiva and other people as well. Can you give the name of your website and where they can find them?
Yes, it's www.maj.org.au is our website. And we've got a little section of videos. It's under one of the, I can't remember what the main heading is, but it might be news or views or something, and go down and there'll be videos, and there's the video of you.
Great. Just click on the buttons until you find more information and find the videos, because they're professionally done. They're the types of videos that you can show to a doctor or a teacher, a science teacher, you know, send to a farmer, anybody that you'd like. And I think they'll be very impressed that it's from Australia, and, you know, love the Michael Antonu's accent and, you know, all of that. Anyway, they're just wonderfully done. So I appreciate very much the work that you're doing out in Australia. Anything else that you want to let us know before we sign off?
No, I'm just going to say to everybody, it really is worthwhile getting involved and looking after your food, and whichever way you want to do it, because farmers markets and are booming, and people are getting more interested, and it's all about us showing an interest, and then that supports the movement as a whole. So jump in, and it's fantastic.
Yes, wherever you are around the world, jump in and do this week, do something for your mom and bring organic food. If you're gonna see your mom, or if you're gonna take her out, go to that extra effort and find an organic restaurant. Bring her maybe organic flowers. There's a lot of toxins that are on flowers, so you want to make sure to try to get her safe flowers. Bring her organic chocolate. You know, whatever it is that you can this week, do something extra special for mom, and say a little thanks or prayer, whatever you do, for the moms around the world, like Fran, that are working very hard. And say hello, please, to all of your other mom friends in Australia for me, and for the rest of us. And thank you very much for all your hard work out there.
Oh, thank you, Zen. And thanks for your work too.
Thanks so much.
Bye.